Good afternoon. ASIO National Security Director Harguna Talaka, ADCP. Today we'll be covering the Bondi terror attack. We'll get straight into it. It was mega raid. LRAD harassed the Bondi attacker by Home Affairs, ABC Home Affairs, with Peter Dutton. They harassed him with the LRAD, the same people that LRAD myself. They're also the ones, all the Home Affairs ABC Operations Centre, where they do the LRAD, they're all the ones at Bondi Shopping Centre on the TV describing what happened. They describe it, the Home Affairs staff are all, they do the LRAD activities. They're all describing what happened on TV. This happened and that happened in the terror attack. And the Home Affairs people are also the ones solving it, are the police. They all said that it isn't terrorism. It's who they call everyone. So then these LRAD people, they call them everybody. Everybody to them, everyone. They call them everyone is all the LRAD people that want to be ASIO, they want to be national security, they're ABC Home Affairs Call Centre. They all said it isn't terrorism. So they're going to keep doing the same thing. As we get closer to arresting, as ASIO, as we get closer to arresting all the politicians, and we're currently apprehending all the police for their cases, fabricated cases, as we get closer, they're going to keep harassing people to conduct attacks. LRADing them, LRAD, hearing voices to attack them. Then they'll keep conducting these attacks on shopping centres, on victims, crazed people, people hearing voices, etc. As they will pretend to do the work. So just to recap, it's ABC Home Affairs, that mega raid LRAD Joel Cauchi. The Bondi attacker was LRAD'd. ASIO concluded their investigation. He was mega raid by Home Affairs. And the voice transcripts are available from the Department of Defence from Operations. The transcript of the Modrec, which is known as the Modrec, and the screen record with the voices, people monitoring him and giving him voices, instructing him. We've covered all the different things that they do. Nearly 400 different things that they do with the voices. We've covered that already. So the ABC Operations Call Centre, they gave him voices to conduct the attack and harassed him to conduct the attack. And these attacks will be more prevalent as we get close to arresting the politicians. Politicians who run these mega raid groups, LRAD groups. You are over.
LRAD is a long-range acoustic hailing devices. They provide the user with an ability to transmit their voice down to an extended distance. What makes them different in the marketplace is that rather than just being projected straight out like a bullhorn, it rifles it, kind of focuses it down, and they're very good at being clear, intelligible voice, so you can hear very well exactly what the person is saying.
This is a test of the long-range acoustic device, LRAD. The LRAD can be used to hail and notify at great distances using live or pre-recorded sounds or voice messages.
It's optimized for human voice, so you can pre-record messages that you want to transmit to people, whether it be in a disaster area, whether it be just crowd control, or in an event where you want to tell people what to do and where to go and how to respond. There are a variety of different devices that we have. The white one next to me is will send the sound out in a 360-degree arc. The other two further to my left are more directional in nature. They'll produce the sound will go out anywhere from 50 to 2,000 meters out, and in a cone about 30-degree arcs. It's an improvement to a bullhorn. The bullhorn is kind of like a shotgun, whereas this device is more of a rifle shot. It's used by the warfighter in both Afghanistan and Iraq to communicate with the local people that may be coming up onto a U.S. vehicle. They can use it and focus it at them and talk to them with the bullhorns and the noise that's going around them. It's very difficult for them to hear. It's also been integrated onto helicopters, and you can hear it over the prop wash, so you can speak down from it. Fire departments and police departments have it as well. The Coast Guard uses it, the Navy. They're on cruise ships for them to be able to talk to people on shore.
Long-range communication is being used increasingly throughout the world by the military, public safety agencies, for maritime and perimeter security, and for wildlife preservation and asset protection. Introduced in 2003, LRAD is a powerful communication system that can determine intent, create large safety zones, peacefully resolve uncertain situations, preserve wildlife and prevent aircraft and wind farm bird strikes, and most importantly, saves lives on both ends of this long-range acoustic device.
This is a test of the long-range acoustic device, LRAD.
LRAD broadcasts highly intelligible, live or pre-recorded voice messages and alarm tones in a 30-degree beam over distances ranging from 500 yards to over 5 miles. LRAD was created in response to the deadly October 2000 attack on the USS Cole.
Here was a USS destroyer in a Yemeni port. They didn't know if it were fishermen or terrorists that were pulling alongside them until it was too late. They turned out to be terrorists, detonated, killed...
And we know what happened.
Yeah, we killed,
it was bad.
Killed many sailors, injured others.
The sailors aboard the Cole had no way to determine if the craft was piloted by fishermen or terrorists until it was too late. Since 2003, the U.S. Navy and most foreign naval forces have equipped their fleets with hundreds of LRAD systems. LRAD's ability to communicate instructions in any language clearly and effectively over distance enhances the opportunity to resolve uncertain situations peacefully,
Out of the vehicle and raise your...
while enabling military forces to communicate to unfriendly civilians from within the safety of their armored vehicles. Military personnel are trained in the proper use of LRAD systems and have full control of the audio output through pre-recorded broadcasts stored on LRAD's military-grade MP3 player or by issuing live instructions through a hardened microphone. Unlike bullhorns with their limited range and poor sound quality, LRAD broadcasts in a directed beam of sound that is loud, crystal clear, and can be easily heard and understood inside buildings, cars, and in almost any type of environment and situation.
I declare this to be an unlawful assembly.
And I think that was the first time that a police department had used LRAD in a high-profile event. And what they were interested in is keeping the property damage down and the number of arrests down.
Homeland Security and law enforcement agencies are using LRAD for emergency responses and high-profile events to safely and clearly communicate to individuals and crowds from the air or on land and water. LRAD fills the gap between bullhorns and tear gas, tasers, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and other non-lethal responses. LRAD can be quickly modulated in response to protesters' actions, while ensuring that law enforcement's instructions are clearly heard and understood. LRAD's safe alarm tone is used in short bursts to get a crowd's attention and to deter the escalation of unlawful acts. By turning operations centers and passive surveillance networks into instantaneous first responders, the LRAD RX gives security personnel a new capability to remotely defend critical asset perimeters and borders from potential threats without leaving the safety of their control rooms.
You are in a restricted area.
Powerful cameras and infrared sensors will be used to detect the border crossers. Then the LRAD units could be trained on those crossers remotely. With each mile of border fence costing about $16 million, putting a $90,000 LRAD unit on every mile of rural border sounds pretty cost-effective.
Beginning with its use to defend the Seaborne Spirit in November of 2005, LRAD has been deployed successfully many times to determine the intent of ships not responding to radio calls and to thwart pirates from hijacking commercial maritime vessels.
That is very piercing. You feel it throughout your body.
Absolutely. They use 2 hours on their vessels and make the pirates think, wow, do we want to attack this vessel that's obviously prepared? Perhaps we should go look at someone else.
LRAD systems, integrated with avian radar, are proving effective in keeping flocks of birds away from runways when commercial airliners are most vulnerable to potentially disastrous bird strikes. By steering birds away from airports through broadcasting a near infinite variety of tones and predator calls, LRAD can significantly reduce the approximately $1.2 billion spent each year to repair aircraft and facilities damaged by bird strikes.
Sound waves which can effectively scare off flocks of birds in the path of a plane and avoid possible bird strikes.
When a flock of birds hears that distress call, they'll take off. We have other annoying sounds that just get birds moving out of the air.
And moving out of harm's way.
I'm Calvin Duane, I'm Manager of Environment for Canadian Natural. One of the ways we manage wildlife is this system here. Our LRAD, or long-range acoustic device, is here to keep the birds away from our tailings pond. Sounds start off with, first of all, being birds of prey sort of sounds, hawks, eagles, those sort of things to scare ducks and geese away. If that doesn't work, then it moves into more of a louder, shocking sound like a shotgun blast or something along that line. And then finally, if the bird is not deterred from that point, it goes into a distress call of a bird of similar species so that the birds will actually think that there's a very serious thing that they need to avoid.
Using powerful, crystal clear communication to determine intent, create large safety zones, resolve uncertain situations peacefully, and save lives on both sides of the long-range acoustic device, LRAD safely fills the communications gap for military, public safety, commercial security, wildlife, and asset protection applications.
Let's go now to a security expert, Scott Taylor, who just to talk us through what happened this afternoon. Scott, you're across we've seen from inside the shopping centre. What do the security pictures tell us about the attacker and the pictures we've seen that have been uploaded on social media?
Yeah, from the video footage and seeing these things occur, compared to, sadly, what may be considered a traditional armed active offender incident, some of his behaviours didn't indicate that type of motivation, because in those type of incidents, the people who were conducting those will try and get to as many people as possible. And we saw with the video footage there were people that were very close within range and unaware of what was occurring. And not only did he not engage with the range of them, there wasn't even eye contact like at those times. So from a motivation point of view, there's definitely some things to consider in regards to the behaviour there. So the other thing I think it's important to mention is there's been some commentary and some discussion around the shop lockdowns and some of those things there, and having some previous experience in dealings there with some of the various Westfields, they have some great processes in place there, and those processes save lives because they communicate well and they pressure test those. So I think the combination of those and just some incredible bravery of the people involved is what's really reduced and mitigated, some of the things, because this could have been even worse, sadly.
You were saying that he wasn't making much eye contact or saying much. Can you read into anything of these pictures that we keep showing? Because they are quite extraordinary, of these sort of hero shoppers who were trying to stop him, and the father who was trying to sort of talk him down and get in between him and his children that were trying to leave the shopping centre. Can you read into anything into how he reacted or related to those people?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, with a couple of the things there, you're seeing the way that his gait, like his pattern, what is his arm movement. There's not anything there that's overly frantic. And the thing is, while some of the people have said, and the witnesses, that he'd been calm, with his manner, there's a couple of things that can drive that, whether it's from the drugs, mental illness, or goal-centered. So there's a range of things with his behaviours that we're seeing that I'm going to say isn't traditional with this type of incident. And the thing is, you saw in the video that you're showing now that the gentleman there who sort of turned to face him and put his hands out, which was a defensive manner, the person then, he just continued on. So in these type of incidents, when I say they try and go through to try and get as many people that they can get to, anytime there's things that can be a blockage or a delay in doing that, they move on. And that's why the whole programs and things that we say on escape, hide, tell is so important. You're making it more difficult for these people to get access. The bravery of the people involved, and that I was seeing regularly with the footage, is the majority of people will either freeze or completely turn and run from an incident like this. So from the witnesses and people there that ran forward, I mean, that's absolutely incredible bravery. But for that officer as well to engage by herself and to have the training and the mental strength to be able to respond and manage and control things that way is just testament to her own just incredible skills and balance. I mean, protectors like that are just amazing.
And is that typical? The fact that she went in on her own, they'd obviously received a lot of calls from the public. She knew that he was armed and dangerous, he'd already hurt people, that she wouldn't wait for backup to go in with her? Is it because it's extraordinary? It seems incredibly brave.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally we would like to have there be a risk-based approach identifying that, because, and some of the hardest things about in these type of incidents is the normal response is not what sometimes sit well with people when police attend site. Like, if people think, this person needs first aid and injury, and their number one priority needs to be to get there as rapidly as possible and to try and mitigate that threat. So I believe this would be a combination of a natural protective instinct, but has been underpinned by some absolute incredible balance. I mean, without putting too fine a point on it, the fine motor skills and things under stress and duress, be able to do that and action and to mitigate that threat the way that she did is absolutely amazing.
Scott, back on the attacker, what I just cannot reconcile or understand is that a defensive dad puts his arms up and the coward backs away, that he goes on to stab a mother and her baby. Yeah. Why choose them?
Sadly, the most difficult thing with incidents like this is to understand that people's moral compass just is not aligned with ours, people that act like this. And so for that reason, being sometimes it can be the weakest combination of victims, and which is terrible to think, and I know very, very hard to reconcile. And so that could be a driving factor there.
Absolutely appalling. Look, another point of curiosity in all of this, which you would understand having worked with these shopping centres, is I was so incredibly impressed by all those store owners and managers and just general staff who pulled down the shutters down pretty quickly and locked their customers inside. I spoke to one of them in there who did that exact thing and kept them in there for a long time. They had excellent security across the front of their own store. Is that part of what a shopping mall like that would have prepared for or planned, or was that the individual act of shop owners just to do what instinct tells them to do?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. So definitely, like your Westfields and some of the other larger retailers have these processes in place, and they practice those and they pressure test those. But if it's the individual person, I mean, not every person from every shop who's working there sometimes gets time for that training, and so that comes down to the individual response under stress and duress. I mean, from that point of view, in these sort of incidents, I think some people have a natural protective instinct and become other people centered. And I think from the feedback from how things have been managed about how rapidly this occurred, from the information that I've been made aware of, how rapidly that occurred with some of these lockdowns and the way that it's been managed, even from the communications afterwards, has been great. So, and it's testament to systems and process, but also some people in there that are, that once again, other people centred, I think is a key part of this.
But it is remarkable because it almost, you know, we look at the United States and there are often active gunman situations because of the gun laws there, and we don't. This is quite unusual, and I would imagine that so many of those people working in those shops wouldn't have even thought anything like this could ever have happened in Sydney.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a range of circumstances that they get trained for, whether it be unidentified package, small group protest, armed active offender, and I mean that's why a lot of the training is centred around armed active offender compared to what people may have heard just being active shooter, because more likely being with the edge weapons. Yeah, I believe they believe it's very highly unlikely for that to occur, and for this to happen, for people under stress and duress with what happens, for them to switch into what they've been trained in managing that is testament to having some good systems in place, but also, you know, good people in place as well, like you for testing that, because otherwise you get a range of survival stress responses. Some people can withdraw the whole fight, flight or freeze.
Indeed. Well, people, it would seem, at these early stages have done incredible jobs this afternoon, either from police, ambulance and or just everyday people that obviously the Prime Minister referred to step up and help and to protect and be strong, which is quite incredible. Those instincts have kicked in an incredibly alarming and distressful situation with carnage around them. Scott Taylor, security expert, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Let's go back now, as I mentioned before, Annie Puller and Ben Downey had been getting together a whole range of interviews from eyewitnesses this afternoon, and they spoke to them to help fill in the timeline and give us an idea of what went on. Let's listen again to one of them.
You saw this man armed. Talk me through what was happening.
So I was shopping in the centre. I was just walking past the gym actually, and I could see people running around on the level below us. And so we kind of all looked down to see what was happening and what was going on down there. And I had my phone out, obviously, as we all do these days. And I saw, running past the boosters, everyone sprinting back, this guy with a knife running towards people, running up to people with his knife. And so we then ran into the gym to try and shelter. And we were helping close the gym doors when we heard multiple gunshots. It sounded like multiple gunshots go off on the level below. And so then everyone kind of just ran back into the gym at that time to try and shelter. And then we were in there for probably 15 or 20 minutes at least. And then we got moved onto the roof where we were sheltering up there for another 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
The video that you've shown me of that man is absolutely terrifying. You can see quite a large knife in his arm.
Yeah.
What were people doing around him? What were they saying?
I think it was just disbelief, to be honest. Everyone was a bit in shock, like, this doesn't happen in Australia, right? And I think the moment that you heard the gunshots, it felt a little bit removed. A knife is not an immediate threat to you when you're a floor away, but hearing gunshots is a completely different story, and I think that really triggered a lot of people because no one knew where they were coming from, and as I said, it's just not something you expect to go through in Australia.